మీలాగా కాస్త కొంచెం ట్రై చేస్తున్నారా?
When I say the name India, what comes to your mind? Do you think about the poverty portrayed by Western media, the farmers in villages working to make ends meet, or maybe the fact that this country is populated by 1.3 billion people? For me, the word home comes to mind. Family, God's own country, and one of the most diverse landscapes on earth. My family and I made the 24-hour trip to India for the first time in 4 years, and it wasn't until this time around I got to appreciate how breathtaking this country truly is. We started our trip in Andhra Pradesh, in the city of Vijayawada. From there, we drove about 45 minutes out of the city to visit a famous mountain range near the village of Guntur. The scenery was unlike anything I've ever seen, filled with dozens of ancient architectural buildings scattered across the area with drawings and scriptures, along with some incredible scenery of the lush and greenery unique only to India. We spent some time scouring the ins and outs of each of the buildings, where we found hidden pathways in smaller sections of each building to explore more. But one of the biggest attractions of this area lies in its wildlife. Atop the peak, locals will find hundreds of monkeys scattered throughout a dozen miles of mountain range and a viewpoint overlooking the entirety of the city that you simply can't beat. Not only was this one of my favorite views, but I also captured one of my favorite shots of a monkey sitting on this very same ledge, overlooking the entirety of the city below. After the trek to Guntur, we headed back to Vijayawada to explore what the area had to offer. My cousin took us to one of his favorite spots in the entire city, with a beautiful overlook of the bridge, for some racing at the Adventura tracks. Indians love cars, so naturally, racing at tracks is a big attraction and pastime for a majority of the youth. When our time at the tracks ended, we headed home where I was able to capture some incredible nighttime scenery shots. Even at night, India's massive population is on display, with streets packed in every which way. We ended our night with a stop by a local temple to offer prayer to the gods. The street life, colors, and atmosphere made for a surreal ending to the night and a most memorable drive home. The next morning, I headed out with my uncle and dad to visit one of the most famous and important cultural sites in all of South India, the Durga Temple. Every day, thousands of people make the long drive to the outskirts of the city to offer prayer in one of the most beautiful religious establishments I've ever seen in my life. I was asked not to film inside the confines of the building, but there was still plenty to see, like small statues of gods and line sculptures doused in sindoor and vermilion powder, common decor of many religious figures and sculptures in India. I was even given a kundava by the priests in the temple, which is said to be a direct blessing from the gods. To me, the real beauty of the temple lies in its location directly above the bank of the Krishna River, which spans 870 miles through multiple states. We decided to get a closer view of the river at one of our friends' house, which may just have the best backyard in the entire state, located right on the riverbank with a gorgeous view of the city mountains in the background. Our next destination was unlike anything I've ever seen before, and in my eyes, one of the most beautiful and lush hidden gems on the face of the earth. We drove 4 hours to reach Marudmali, a town of less than 25,000 people in the middle of the jungle. Chock full of greenery, winding roads, and wildlife, Marudmali was truly the ultimate jungle experience. The scenery was out of this world, with countless trees, enormous lakes, reservoirs, and of course, an abundance of wildlife. Just about everywhere you look, a furry friend will be within your sights. Most of them are already accustomed to humans, so it made for very simple yet beautiful shots. As we went deeper into the jungle, however, we found different animals you typically wouldn't see in the city, such as water buffaloes and their calves. As we ventured deeper into the forest, we passed through a number of underpasses shrouded by trees. When we reached the top, we saw some incredible views of the forest from more than 2,000 feet in the air. Millions of trees through hundreds of miles of jungle in every direction we looked. It truly felt like we were one with the wilderness. After a successful first day, we decided to make the drive back to the village and call it for the night. On the way back, we saw schools, churches, small shops, and explored the market area with all of the locals, getting a taste of the nighttime atmosphere in rural areas such as this one. The next day, we got an early start to travel to the Manyam viewpoint, the most famous viewpoint in Marudmali. It took us almost 45 minutes of driving up the mountain to reach it, but when we did, I can only describe the moment as surreal. Even in 4K, I don't think any camera could truly do justice to how amazing this viewpoint was. Soon after, we traveled back down the mountain for our final stop at the Amrutadhara Falls, a small cove sectioned off from the rest of the mountain, and the ultimate feeling of tranquility and bliss. Our first day in Delhi was full of surprises, the first of them being heavy rains in the morning, which isn't typical of this area. The first destination on our list was the Qutb Minar. Despite the rain, the sun shined bright on the site and made for a beautiful first visit. The tower was built in 1193, making it one of Delhi's most historic landmarks, with thousands of people coming to visit daily. It stands over 237 feet tall with 5 sectioned off stories. The first 3 were constructed with red sandstone, while the 4th and 5th stories were made with regular sandstone and marble. The site was named after the religious figure Sufi Saint Khwaja Qutbuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki. At the time, the site was built to celebrate the Muslim dominance in Delhi after the defeat of Delhi's last Hindu ruler. There was something enchanting about these grounds. You could truly feel the story and history behind this place with every step you took. As we left, the sun shined bright on us again, making for a magical ending to the visit. As the rain died down and the weather cooled, we headed back to downtown Delhi to explore one of the most unique shopping centers in the country, the Underground Market. Just below the city center, you'll find hundreds of stores selling shoes, dresses, electronics, and even sports jerseys. Many of the store owners will even go out of their way to make a sale to you, as there's a handful of competition. Though it seems compact, the Underground Market is a sizable shopping mall, spanning over 4.3 acres in size. After this, we decided to call it a night in preparation for the next day. We woke up early to visit the most iconic landmark in all of India, located roughly an hour from Delhi in the city of Agra. Not only is the site one of the most fascinating architectural pieces in the world, but it also has a rich history. 9 generations of workers have lived near the site since it began building in 1632, and since there were no clocks or calendars, 22 domes were built to symbolize each year of construction. Standing 240 feet tall with 24 different stories, the legendary Taj Mahal. Shah Jahan, the founder of Shahjahan, which is now known as Old Delhi, instructed the Taj to be built in memoriam of his 13th wife, Mumtaz Mahal, who died during childbirth. Her last name was taken and used in naming of half of the palace. Although beautiful, the Taj is located in one of the most scorching centers of the country, with temperatures exceeding almost 115 degrees. With that, we tried to stay in the shade as much as we could to capture more comfortable shots. As you go up the steps to enter, 2 beautiful red mosques can be seen directly on each side of the Taj where locals go to pray. For obvious reasons, we weren't allowed to film inside the building, but much of this palace's beauty comes from its groundbreaking architecture and stylization. Identical floral inscriptions and patterns can be seen engraved on the entirety of the Taj's exterior. These designs are built with a number of unique resources like lapis lazuli, green malachite, topaz, white sapphire, black onyx, and more. These same minerals that were used to build the grandeur of the Taj nearly 400 years ago are still in the market today, and are still used in shops by descendants of the Taj's original construction workers. We visited one of those shops nearby and found hundreds of porcelain and marble figures which use the same minerals as the Taj. But in reality, no video can do justice to this site. It's truly something you have to experience with your own eyes. Coming up on our final day in Delhi, we visited Humayun's tomb. Most people know India as a country dominated by a large Hindu population, but it wasn't always this way. Hundreds of years ago, Muslim influence was enormous, and much of this can be seen in sites like these. Much like the Taj, though smaller, this tomb was built to honor the Mughal Emperor Humayun after his passing in 1556. An early morning visit allowed us to really see the tomb in its full tranquility. We also saw the smaller tomb of Isa Khan, a Muslim Rajput who actually resisted the invasion of the Mughals. In the end, both Isa and Humayun lay resting in the same garden, just a walks away from each other. With 3 sites remaining, we hit the road again. We first came across the Akshardham temple. Cameras aren't allowed inside, so we stopped on the highway for shots. In my opinion, this temple is the best site in Delhi simply because of its architecture and religious significance. We then visited the Lotus Garden, a quiet but beautiful nature reserve with some great buildings and animal wildlife. Though we weren't able to see many as most were covering from the heat, It was a great place to walk and observe Delhi's natural beauty. Finally, we visited the Lotus Temple. Since opening in 1986, the temple has served as a beacon of equality in India, promoting free prayer for all, regardless of religion or class. Thousands of people visit the temple every day for short prayer and to see the lush gardens and greenery and scenery outside. And that was that. My first trip back to India in 4 years was over. Yet it felt like I visited an entirely new place. A place of simplicity, culture, and peace. A place I'm so proud to call home.